So, Amy and Rory are sort of deadish. We've had time to wipe away the tears, and this Christmas Day special, The Snowmen, ushers in a new era for Doctor Who. It must be a new era. They've got a flashier intro, the theme tune's been rearranged again, and the TARDIS interior is now kind of boring and nothing like as good as the previous multi-level steampunk version, which was the best they've had. Regarding the new intro, love it. The theme now sounds a bit like the 80s version I grew up with, and Matt Smith's face appears against the starfield, and this has not occurred since the end of the classic series in 1989. Previous Doctors whose faces have appeared in the credits are Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Thurston McCoy, in other words, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Matt Smith is, of course, the 11th. Please excuse the Sheldon moment, it just had to be said. Oh wait, there's also the new companion, Clara. Generally, Louise Coleman looks somewhat familiar, having already appeared in the show as Oswin just 5 episodes ago in Asylum of the Daleks. One of the 2 episodes we got last year that was actually evocative or memorable. The only other episode title besides Angels Take Manhattan I can even remember from this year's season is Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and not for the right reason. So anyway, Doctor Who has reused actors before. This character is a Victorian barmaid called Clara, not Oswin. And what could possibly connect these 2 characters? Everybody knows that the climax to Asylum of the Daleks was a highlight of this season, and Stephen Moffat definitely never ever writes something good, only to spoil it later. Nuh-uh, never happens. Actually, let's be honest here, Moffat now has such a habit of getting it right and then fucking it up later, I'm starting to wonder if he's secretly in charge of YouTube. Okay, so Clara Oswin Oswald is a character who appears in different eras in history and on different planets, each time with the same basic persona, but clothes and accent change, and doubtless it'll be at least the end of the season before we know why. This wasn't a Christmas special, they're usually standalone. This is all setting up the second half of the season, while also relying on one having seen the season so far. If, like my mother, you totally forgot Asylum of the Daleks, then what the fuck is going on? If, like me, you do remember Asylum of the Daleks, then what the fuck is going on? Stephen Moffat likes to press the flesh and follow the fan buzz, and so presumably knows that many were irritated by the Rory character being killed and resurrected no less than half a dozen times. But don't worry, that's all over. Now we have a recurring character, not a companion. They travel with the Doctor. There is actually room in that blue thing for more than one person. An odd aspect of Doctor Who for Moffat to miss, and kind of the point. Who pops up everywhere the Doctor goes, and always ends up sacrificing her life for the greater good. Every week? The fineness of the line between writing and trolling had never really occurred to me before. Well played, Mr. Moffat. I'll be fair though, and say that Clara's death is moving. After all, those Victorian characters will never see Clara again, so their tears are justified. Also, Clara/Oswin seems to have no idea what is happening to her, and with almost no memory of her other lives. However, that doesn't mean that in a few months we won't be screaming, "Hurry up, is this the bit where you die already?" Also, how will this character ever leave the show? In a couple of years, anything less than a final end, and, well, when she's been through death that many times, won't she be begging for a final end? Trouble is, by then she may not be the only one. The decision to cast Jenna Louise Coleman as the new companion was a good one. She was superb as Oswin and as Clara, and has a great deal of appeal. However, one is left with some misgivings about how she's being deployed. I also think a Victorian woman as feisty as that would have attracted a lot of attention, but it's meant to be a fun show, so I won't quibble. Although even nowadays she'd be arrested for stalking, and most people would agree that jumping onto the backs of cabs and sticking your head through the roof is bad form. Some of the highlights were Clara as a governess entertaining children with her ability to do a Cockney accent, and making absurd claims, such as she invented fish because she hates swimming alone. Very Moffat humour, and I'm increasingly convinced he has an obsession with marine life. I have focused mainly on the Clara Oswald aspect of the story, since much else was underwhelming and played second or third fiddle. So the boy in the striped pyjamas starts talking to a snowman who starts talking back. And the boy grows up to be Richard E. Grant in a Scrooge costume, who has a big bingo machine in his house, and there are snowmen with fangs, but later there's a far cooler looking see-through ice person, and some jokes about Punch and Judy. Oh, and the lesbian lizard and her partner are back. They're married somehow. And that funny Sontaran nurse is back even though he died on Demon's Run. Does anyone actually stay dead these days? The joke of this character, in case you didn't know or have forgotten, is that Sontarans are a warrior race, but this one is meant to be a nurse. The most disappointing thing about this episode is that I was looking forward to Richard E. Grant as a Who villain. How has this never happened before? 10 years ago I saw Richard E. Grant as a Sherlock Holmes villain in the BBC's Christmas Day special of Hound of the Baskervilles, and he made that production. He plays a good villain if you use him right. Unfortunately, this character is one-dimensional and has little to do. Just being possessed by the Great Intelligence, a reference to the Troughton era, although those were robots disguised as abominable snowmen, as in Yeti, so it's a bit tenuous. And then being a zombie, any actor can play that. It isn't even real villainy. Oh, and what's with all the Sherlock Holmes references? Everyone loves a Victorian detective yarn. But you chose to set your Sherlock show in the contemporary. It's a success. Live with it. Yes, this was enjoyable enough with the family on Christmas Day. Much of the audience would have been tipsy after Christmas dinner, and that Christmas Day glow carries. There was also lots of humour, but maybe too much. A romp through Victorian London with lesbian detectives, one of whom is a lizard. Almost panto, but hey, it's Christmas. Moffat gained points for Clara exclaiming, "It's smaller on the outside," and the Doctor replying, "Okay, that is a first," but loses points for "takes one to snow one." When you start making puns even I groan at, then you are in trouble. What is more, how many people were talking over this? If Nan only watches Doctor Who at Christmas, she has to ask what's going on every 5 minutes. Then your little brother answers, and you wish you were watching it alone so you could hear it. Doctor Who is the most watched show on Christmas Day, and should therefore be something everyone can understand without continuity being explained. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this, but let's not pretend it's any more than a prelude to the rest of the year. If you've already paid £12.50 to watch The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, only to discover that, exciting as it is, it basically only serves as an advert to get you to watch the next 2.5 hour films, then be grateful that BBC TV shows are at least free. The classic Doctor Who series was cancelled partly because it had become continuity laden and made too much for the fans. A closed system tends towards entropy. But at least that lasted 26 years. After 7 years of the new series, you can't even enjoy a Christmas special without being an avid fan that watches and remembers every recent episode and cares what happens next. And if they haven't persuaded you to watch next year's episode, if for no other reason than to find out who Clara Oswald is, you've pretty much wasted an hour.